What if I told you the restaurant where you had your first date, the place your family celebrated every birthday, the spot you and your friends hit up after the big game, is about to disappear forever? T's not a hypothetical question. Right now, across America, a quiet extinction event is underway. The glow of those familiar signs is dimming, the hum of conversation is fading, and the doors are closing for good. These aren't just the quirky local diners we're losing. These are the giants. The household names. The places you thought would be here as long as the highways they were built on. Over the next year, America is set to lose some of its most iconic restaurant chains. This isn't just a story about profits and losses. This is the story of a fundamental shift in American culture, the hollowing out of the middle class, and the end of an entire way of life. The soundtrack of American dining is changing, and for many of these brands, the music has already stopped. Stick with us as we uncover who is on the chopping block and, more importantly, why. This is the Great American Restaurant Die-Off. 1. Subway, the fresh prince of a bygone era. Do you remember the exact moment you stopped craving a Subway sandwich? It might be hard to pinpoint, but for millions of Americans, that moment has come and gone. For a generation, especially working-class families and students, Subway was the undisputed champion of healthy fast food. It was the quick, convenient, and seemingly virtuous alternative to the greasy world of burgers and fries. The green and yellow sign was a beacon of freshness in a sea of fried everything. Today, that beacon is flickering, and on many American streets, it's gone dark entirely. This isn't hyperbole, it's a statistical collapse. After reaching an astronomical peak of over 27,000 U.S. locations in 2015, the chain has been in a state of perpetual freefall. The decline has been nothing short of staggering. In 2024 alone, Subway shuttered a net of 631 U.S. locations, dragging its total domestic count below 20,000 for the first time in nearly 2 decades. Since that 2015 high-water mark, a jaw-dropping 7,600 restaurants have vanished in the U.S. To put that in perspective, that's like the entire footprint of Taco Bell in the United States simply disappearing. So what went so catastrophically wrong? Subway's demise is a classic case of death by 1,000 cuts, but 3 wounds have proven to be undeniably fatal. First, the healthy halo has shattered. The very bedrock of Subway's brand identity, Eat Fresh, has crumbled under the weight of modern consumer expectations. Today's diners don't just want the idea of fresh, they demand genuine, verifiable freshness, transparent sourcing, and clean ingredients. Subway, with its reliance on pre-cooked meats shipped in vacuum-sealed bags, frozen bread dough, and tubs of pre-chopped vegetables, feels less like a farmer's market and more like a food science lab from 1995. What was once a fresh alternative now feels profoundly processed and uninspired. This created a massive opening for a new wave of competitors. Upstarts like Jersey Mike's, with its theatrical slicing of fresh meats, and Firehouse Subs, with its hot, steamy sandwiches, didn't just offer better ingredients. They offered a better, more authentic experience. They captured the market that Subway fundamentally failed to understand was evolving. Second, the brand's reputation is in tatters. For years, Subway has been pummeled by a relentless barrage of negative press that has eroded public trust. There was the infamous yoga mat chemical scandal, where a food blogger revealed that Subway's bread contained azotocarbonamide, a chemical also used in the production of yoga mats. This was followed by a ruling in Ireland that its bread contained so much sugar it couldn't legally be called bread at all. Compounding this operational nightmare was the unimaginable disgrace of its longtime spokesman, Jared Fogle. Fogle, the face of Subway's healthy image, was convicted of horrific crimes, casting a dark, indelible shadow over the brand that no amount of marketing could erase. In the American marketplace, trust is the most valuable and fragile currency. Once shattered, it's almost impossible to piece back together. Finally, and perhaps most critically, is the issue of franchisee despair. The rapid and widespread closures have left thousands of franchisees, often small, family-run businesses, blindsided and financially devastated. Stories emerged from states like Oregon where stores were closed abruptly with no warning, leaving employees jobless overnight. One manager reported that corporate communications were insisting it was business as usual, even as crucial food deliveries had mysteriously stopped. This points to a deep, systemic disconnect between corporate strategy and the grim reality on the ground. While the 2023 acquisition by private equity firm Roark Capital brought a glimmer of hope and a massive influx of cash, the core problem hasn't changed. Subway's unit volumes, the amount of money each store makes, are painfully low. In mid-2024, same-store sales on the East Coast dropped by 8.7%, with other regions seeing revenue fall by as much as 10%. The brand that once commanded over a third of the sandwich market in 2017 now holds just 23%. The giant machine is adrift, without its founding members at the helm and a business model that feels 2 decades out of date. The question is no longer just whether Subway can recover, but whether it will survive 2025 at all. 2. Hooters, a relic in a modern world. Drive through any number of aging suburban strip malls, and you might spot it. A faded, sun-bleached Hooters sign, its once vibrant orange now a pale, dusty peach. It hangs over a vacant storefront, a quiet monument to a brand that seems permanently stuck in a different millennium. It's time to say what has been obvious for years. America is falling out of love with Hooters. For a fleeting cultural moment, Hooters was more than just a place to get chicken wings. It was a phenomenon built on a simple, neatly packaged male fantasy. Attractive women in tight uniforms, endless pitchers of cold beer, and sports on every screen. It was a cornerstone of 90s pop culture, a slightly rebellious and titillating escape. But this is 2025, not 1995. The world has changed, and Hooters has stubbornly refused to change with it. The chain's cultural and financial reckoning culminated in a Chapter 11 bankruptcy filing in March 2025, a move that surprised almost no one who had been watching its slow, painful decline. The company found itself buried under $376 million in debt, a clear signal of deep, systemic problems. Its physical footprint in the U.S. has shrunk dramatically, plummeting from a peak of around 430 locations in 2012 to fewer than 280 by 2024. The bankruptcy proceedings triggered even more closures, with over 30 company-owned restaurants shutting their doors unexpectedly in June 2025, even after initial assurances that locations would remain open. The very core of Hooters' crisis is a fundamental, irreversible misalignment with modern cultural values. The central premise, the objectification of its female staff as the primary marketing tool, feels jarringly anachronistic in a post-#MeToo world. A 2023 Statista survey revealed that over 60% of Americans aged 18 to 34 felt uncomfortable or actively put off by the brand's overtly suggestive nature. Younger diners, both male and female, aren't looking for eye candy with their meal. They are seeking inclusive, respectful, and authentic experiences. The idea of taking a family, a date, or a group of mixed-gender friends to a place that so blatantly objectifies its employees feels, to many, simply unacceptable. Beyond the outdated marketing, the food itself has utterly failed to be a saving grace. In a brutally competitive industry, mediocre food is a death sentence. Business Insider highlighted the chain's perilously low average Yelp rating of just 2.9 out of 5 across the 3 most populous states. This isn't just a failure to impress. It's a failure to meet the most basic expectations of a paying customer. Meanwhile, competitors in the so-called restaurant space, like Twin Peaks, have smartly evolved. They've invested heavily in upgrading their menus to offer higher quality, chef-inspired dishes. They've renovated their interiors to look more like modern, upscale sports lodges rather than dated beach shacks. They've shifted their branding to focus on craft beer and a superior sports viewing experience, successfully attracting a broader demographic that includes not just their traditional base, but Gen Z and millennial customers as well. Hooters, in its bankruptcy filing, defiantly stated it is here to stay and plans to pivot to a leaner, franchise-focused model. There's even been a bid from a group led by wrestling legend Hulk Hogan to purchase and revitalize the brand, with ideas to introduce new revenue streams like merchandise to appeal to a younger crowd. But the brand is facing more than just financial headwinds. It's grappling with terminal cultural irrelevance. A new generation has no nostalgic connection to the Hooters of the 90s, no reason to care about its survival, and even less of a reason to champion its outdated cause. The rebellious icon has become a relic, a curious and slightly embarrassing footnote in the history of American dining. 3. Red Lobster, the sinking of an American dream. Red Lobster once held an almost sacred place in the heart of middle-class America. It was the designated port of call for life's modest but meaningful victories, anniversaries, birthdays, proms, and graduation celebrations. It wasn't about extravagant wealth. It was about a hard-earned reward, a taste of affordable luxury for families who clocked in and out, week after week. The warm glow of the nautical-themed decor and the promise of a buttery Cheddar Bay biscuit represented a small, accessible piece of the American dream. Today, that simple joy is becoming an unattainable fantasy, as Red Lobster itself is being pulled under by a powerful economic tide. The company's profound financial distress culminated in a dramatic Chapter 11 bankruptcy filing in May 2024. This was not a slow leak, it was a sudden capsizing. The filing followed the abrupt, overnight closure of nearly 100 restaurants across 28 states, with liquidators auctioning off everything from kitchen equipment to lobster tanks. The company reported staggering liabilities between $1 billion and $10 billion and a devastating net loss of $76 million in the 2023 fiscal year alone. The crisis is a perfect storm of internal missteps and external pressures. Internally, the most infamous blunder was the $20 endless shrimp promotion. What was once a reliable, limited-time lure for customers was disastrously made a permanent menu item. This decision, reportedly pushed through by its majority owner, Thai Union, against internal advice, turned into a financial black hole, creating an $11 million loss in a single quarter of 2023. It was a catastrophic failure of basic economic calculation. Externally, the economic environment has become brutally hostile for a brand like Red Lobster. The cost of its essential ingredients, particularly lobster and crab, has skyrocketed due to supply chain issues and environmental factors. This, combined with rampant inflation that has driven up labor, rent, and energy costs, squeezed margins to the breaking point. But the most critical factor is the erosion of its core customer base. A survey noted a shocking 30% drop in repeat diners compared to pre-pandemic levels. The simple truth is that many of its former patrons no longer have the disposable income for a seafood dinner. In an economy where families are struggling with the soaring costs of housing, healthcare, and education, a meal at Red Lobster has tragically shifted from an affordable treat to an unjustifiable luxury. While the brand managed to emerge from bankruptcy in September 2024 under new ownership and a new CEO, its future is far from certain. The company will be a smaller, leaner version of its former self, operating around 544 locations, down from over 700 at its peak. The new leadership is focused on a back-to-basics approach, improving service, simplifying the menu with new items like seafood boils, and launching a red carpet hospitality program to win back customer trust. There is a glimmer of hope that a more focused model can weather the storm, with projections showing a potential return to profitability by 2026. However, the potential demise of Red Lobster is more than just another business failure. It's a somber symbol of the shrinking American middle class. It represents the loss of a shared cultural touchstone, a place where the working class could gather to celebrate life's small but precious victories. If this icon of casual dining cannot survive, it speaks volumes about the deep economic instability that is stripping away the simple dignities and joys that were once accessible to everyday Americans. 4. Applebee's, no longer eaten good in the neighborhood. Do you remember the jingle? Eaten good in the neighborhood. For decades, that simple phrase perfectly captured the essence of Applebee's. It wasn't trying to be a five-star restaurant. It was something far more important. It was America's friendly, reliable, and comforting neighborhood grill and bar. It was the constant on the corner, the place you could always count on for a decent meal at a fair price. Now, that neighbor is quietly packing its bags and leaving town, one empty storefront at a time. The chain has been in a state of carefully managed decline for years, a slow, strategic retreat from the American landscape. In 2023 alone, Applebee's closed 46 locations. Its parent company, Dine Brands, projects another 25 to 35 closures in 2025, This steady, grinding erosion has seen its U.S. footprint shrink from 1,578 stores in 2021 to just over 1,500 by the end of 2024. In the first half of 2025, the picture grew even starker as Dine Brands reported a staggering 85 closures across its brands, Applebee's and IHOP, versus only 16 openings, highlighting a persistent and deepening franchisee crisis. Applebee's is a textbook victim of what industry analysts call the great casual dining squeeze. As crippling inflation grips the nation, consumers are being forced into two distinct camps. They are either cooking at home to save money, or they are splurging on a high-end, unique dining experience that feels genuinely special. Mid-tier chains like Applebee's, Chili's, and TGI Fridays are trapped in the brutal middle. They've become too expensive for a truly casual, spontaneous meal, but they lack the novelty, quality, and atmosphere to justify the cost for a celebratory splurge. The average check size at casual dining restaurants has jumped over 10% due to inflation, pushing these once affordable spots into a new price bracket without a corresponding increase in perceived value. This economic pressure is clearly reflected in its customer demographics. Customer return rates have fallen significantly since the pandemic, and the majority of its remaining loyal patrons are over the age of 45, a demographic that is steadily aging and dining out less frequently. Younger generations, millennials and Gen Z, simply don't see the appeal. Their dining habits are dominated by a completely different set of values: speed, convenience, health consciousness, and Instagrammability. To them, Applebee's feels outdated, not just in its menu of ribs and burgers, but in its entire atmosphere. They are more likely to support businesses that align with their social and ethical values, a factor that rarely enters the equation for a legacy chain like Applebee's. However, a surprising flicker of hope emerged in the first quarter of 2025 when Applebee's reported a nearly 5% increase in same-store sales, its first positive result after 7 consecutive quarters of decline. The company credits this temporary rebound to a renewed focus on value-driven promotions. But this single positive quarter cannot erase the long-term trend of closures and waning cultural relevance. The closure of an Applebee's is more than just a lost restaurant. In many small towns and suburban communities, these establishments were vital social hubs. They were places for team dinners after a soccer game, for casual business lunches, for friends to gather after work. Their disappearance is a symptom of a larger social fragmentation, a quiet reminder that the common gathering spaces for the working and middle classes are becoming financially unsustainable in an era of rising costs and fractured consumer loyalties. If this downward trajectory continues, Applebee's may soon be just another memory of a bygone American era. 5. Nusret Tea, Salt Bae, a fad that's lost its flavor. Nusret Tea, the gaudy steakhouse empire of Turkish butcher Nusret Gaki, better known to the world as Salt Bae, was never a restaurant for the people. It was a theater of the absurd, built for the age of Instagram. This was a world where a single slice of Wagyu beef could set you back $1,000, and a steak wrapped in gold leaf ran a cool $500. For a brief, glittering moment, Salt Bae was a global phenomenon. Social media feeds were saturated with videos of the perpetually sunglasses-clad chef, theatrically slicing and sensually sprinkling salt on overpriced cuts of meat for a fawning clientele of celebrities, athletes, and the ultra-wealthy. But the spectacle has grown stale, the joke has worn thin, and the gold leaf bubble has officially and spectacularly burst in the United States. The decline has been swift and merciless. Nusret Tea locations in New York, Miami, and Las Vegas have seen their fortunes plummet since 2023. Review platforms like Yelp and TripAdvisor are now littered with scathing critiques of sky-high prices, rock-bottom service, and aggressively mediocre food. The Financial Times reported that American locations were forced to lay off significant numbers of staff as revenue dropped by as much as 40% in a single year. The media aptly dubbed it the Salt Bae burnout. The closures came fast and furious. In 2023, locations in Boston and New York City's meatpacking district were the first to fall. Then, in January 2025, the Dallas location was permanently shuttered, followed by an abrupt closure in Las Vegas. By the spring of 2025, the the Beverly Hills restaurant also closed its doors, leaving the once sprawling U.S. empire with just 2 remaining outposts in Miami and New York City. The public, once amused and perhaps even mesmerized by the flamboyant showmanship, has grown weary of the empty excess. In the harsh economic climate of 2025, where many working families are struggling to afford basic groceries, the concept of a restaurant built exclusively for the super-rich feels less like aspirational luxury and more like a tone-deaf, obnoxious insult. The performance art of Salt Bae, once a viral sensation that propelled him to global fame, now seems offensive in its profound disconnect from the economic reality faced by 99% of Americans. The act of watching someone pay $1,000 for a steak you know is mediocre at best is no longer entertainment. It's a stark reminder of grotesque inequality. Salt Bae wasn't just selling food. He was selling a fantasy of obscene, consequence-free wealth. He was selling the idea that money could be so abundant it could literally be eaten. But once that fantasy was exposed as hollow, overpriced, and frankly, a bit ridiculous, the public abandoned it without a second thought. While the brand may continue to thrive in the opulent playgrounds of Dubai or London, its American chapter is drawing to a definitive and unceremonious close. The show is over. The final, theatrical sprinkle of salt may have already fallen on its U.S. grave. 6. The Cheesecake Factory, a menu as bloated as the portions. For decades, the Cheesecake Factory has stood as a monument to American excess, a fixture in major shopping malls and a symbol of indulgent, maximalist dining. Its legendary 6-page, 250-item menu was its claim to fame, a sprawling, novel-length document that promised something for absolutely everyone. Its gargantuan portions were the stuff of legend, often providing enough food for 2 meals. But in the economic landscape of 2025, the brand's core philosophy of more is more is rapidly becoming a significant and dangerous liability. While the company is not in the dire bankruptcy straits of some others on this list, it is facing significant headwinds that threaten its long-term stability. The primary challenge is the simple, brutal math of rising costs. A typical dinner for 2 at the Cheesecake Factory can now easily approach $50 or $60 before tip, a steep price for families whose household budgets are stretched to the breaking point. This rising cost positions the restaurant as an infrequent splurge rather than a casual, go-to option. This is a perilous place to be in a market where consumers are increasingly polarized between value-driven fast casual and truly special occasion dining. The once lauded massive menu is now viewed by many industry analysts as a critical weakness. For the modern diner, it can be overwhelming and fatiguing, a glut of choices that often lacks real novelty or culinary inspiration. It screams jack of all trades, master of none. In an age where consumers increasingly value curated, specialized menus that emphasize fresh, local, and high-quality ingredients, the Cheesecake Factory's sprawling catalog can feel dated, inefficient, and wasteful. It raises a crucial question in the mind of the discerning diner. How can a kitchen possibly execute 250 different items well? Furthermore, the brand is being squeezed from 2 directions. On one side, fast casual powerhouses like Chipotle and Panera offer quicker, more affordable, and often healthier meals that perfectly align with the lifestyle of younger consumers. On the other side, a growing ecosystem of smaller, independent local restaurants provides more unique, stylish, and Instagram-worthy dining experiences, often at a similar or even lower price point. The Cheesecake Factory finds itself stuck in the middle, neither fast and cheap nor unique and special. Recent financial reports paint a mixed but concerning picture. While the company reported a modest 1.2% increase in comparable sales in the second quarter of 2025 and saw its revenue grow from the previous year, these are small gains in a highly inflationary environment. Tellingly, the company's own projections for 2025 show it's aiming for revenue growth driven more by opening new units. Up to 25 are planned, than by attracting more customers into its existing ones. This strategy of expanding its footprint to mask stagnant growth in existing stores is often a red flag for a brand facing market saturation. The Cheesecake Factory still holds a nostalgic place in American dining culture, but its model, built on extravagance and excess, feels increasingly out of step with a cost-conscious, health-aware, and value-driven consumer base. Nostalgia may not be enough to sustain it if it fails to adapt to a rapidly changing world. 7. Buffalo Wild Wings, binged by a new generation.